So let's take a look at how we process list or manipulate list in Python. Let's assume that you have a list called X that got 10 elements. From probably from your background from Java or C++, you understand the idea of an array. So any array start from element index 0. Similar thing here, that you start every element from index 0. If I want to display this, very simple, that you can display the entire list like that way. Or you can specify a certain element in a certain position and display that element. And so it's a similar idea for an array. So it's not different. So Python gives you a convenient way of accessing or slicing up your list. That's something very important for you to learn it early on. That's going to be helpful when we start working on NumPy and also pandas. The slicing going to be an important topic. The way that we do the slicing, that I can specify any slice. Let's say that I'm going to create a slice called S from my list, where I'm going to specify using this colon slice operation. So what it means by specifying the slice operation, I can specify what is the starting position and what is the ending position. For right now, let's omit what is the starting and what is the ending. And if I print it, so what it means by it, I don't specify a start or end, means that I'm going to print the whole thing. So if I specify a certain index, let's say that I'm going to do start from index position 3. So what it means by it, now it will start from there and it will run till the end. So this is important. So it will start from that position and it will run till the end. But let's look at what will happen if I put the ending index or the position. So this is important. If you do that, you're going to see that it's not going to be inclusive. What it means by it will start from 3 and it will go for the next element and next one, but it won't include the last index that you mentioned here. So it's not inclusive. That's important to remember. All right. So you specify the first and the last, but last one is not inclusive. So that's very important when you are working with list and slicing things from a list. So let's take a look the idea of copying versus cloning in list. Let's say I'm gonna create a copy called S from this, and then I can print this copy. Right? So that means that if I print it, print X and S, so you're probably going to have the same thing because nothing changed. So let's say that I'm going to make a small change to very first element. I'm going to add something there, something else there. So now if I do that, the expectation is you're going to have the very first element of S, 200, and you're going to have your unchanged list X. Right? But you can see that whatever you did for your copied one going to be affected to your original one. You clone it because of that reason, it's going to affect to your previous one too. But you can avoid this one by using this slice notation. If I do that, you're going to see that now the things that you did for the copied one not going to affect in the original one. It's not going to change the original one. So this gives you an option that you can copy versus clone elements. But it's something to be very careful. This works only a list, outer list like this. But if you have something different, if you have a different type of setup in your list, especially that when you have inner elements, then you need to be very careful. Something like, let's say that I'm going to create a list called A, basically a list of list. Let's say that I have 1, 2, and then I have a separate one called 3 and another one called 4. So now here you have outer list 1, 2, 3, those 3 items, index 0, index 1, and index 2, but you have inner ones now. In here, you have 0 and 1. You have 2 elements in this particular index 0 position. So that's where things kind of get tricky. So now if I do the same thing, let's say that I'm going to create a copy of that similar slice notation. And I'm going to just do regular cloning of that to another one called C. And let's say if I'm going to print it, A, I'm going to print B, and I'm going to print C. Right? But before I do anything, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to change this C. Let's say the position 0. I'm going to append something. I'm going to append some item into that. So what I did here, I picked the 0th item and append something to that. So expectation is now you did that only to your C list. So that means when you print it, you should have an extra element. So let's take a look. So when I do that, you can see now that one is in A and also B and also C. From previous understanding, if you do this, you should not be creating a clone. You're copying it to something different. But you can see now because of the inner elements, inner loop, it did not work. It did not really create a deep copy of your list. So that's where you need to be very careful. Here, you need to really create a deep copy of your list. So what you can do instead, you're creating a sort of a list, a shallow copy of it. Create a deep copy of this. Create a deep copy of that item. So by doing that, now only C, whenever you do that change, only C should be affected at this point. Right? So when I append that, you can see that now only C is appended. Like all the other 2 are gonna leave as it is. So that's something very important to remember. Creating shallow copy versus deep copy, especially when you have multiple layers inside your list.